It's Saturday evening. It's time to talk about the best comic books in the world this week. Now, we skipped last week because you were in MegaCon and there was only one book that I would have recommended, TMNT Saturday Morning Adventures, but this is a much better week and we have far more comic books to recommend this week. How you doing, Drew?
I'm doing okay, and yeah, I like to think you didn't do it because I wasn't there. You know, you can't do it without me. You can't do it with Jim. You know, you gotta have the Drew there. You know, but yeah, I agree. There was really only one good book last week. It was a rough week, but thankfully there were some good books this week. So let's talk about those.
In fact, we had our most anticipated comic book of 2025 drop this week. Green Lantern Corps #1, Jeremy Adams, Morgan Hampton writing. Apparently not a backup story, but a co-writer with Fernando Pasarin on art. It is the weirdest comic book I've ever read that has Jeremy Adams on it. I feel like I know kind of what he likes to do. He likes to really personify heroism, put that front and center on the comic book. And I don't know what this was. There was almost none of that.
I met Jeremy last week. Got to meet up with him last week at MegaCon, and I really wish I had gotten to read this before I ran into him because I would have asked him those same questions. I've been like, hey, Jeremy, how much did you have to do with this? Because I'm not really picking up that much unless it's like kind of like an editorial capacity, like making sure it kind of flowed with what his vision is for Green Lantern. Because the tone of this, I really feel this is written like a comedy more than anything else. And I wasn't really laughing that much at the jokes. And it's interesting.
There are lots of jokes. There's like Philistine jokes. There's another joke about how Black Star wants to take and make Jon Stewart like into a concubine. And certainly Jeremy Adams has jokes in his comic books, but they're normally dad jokes that aren't particularly funny, but they fit the style of the character. But these were supposed to be real punchlines, and all the jokes were awful. It's
a shame because what they've done here, it's a great idea what they've done here. I do like it. But unfortunately, it's really it takes a back seat to the comedy of this book, and it's just not that funny. I do like what they're doing with Sinestro here. I like what they're setting up here. But it wasn't executed that well. And the art is fantastic in this, but it's another case where you have fantastic artists. It was ruined by the writer in their attempt to be funny. And it is not funny. Yeah.
And I agree with you that there are some really good, solid ideas that should be working. You know, and chief among them is this return of Sinestro being a Green Lantern. They kind of explained it. I kind of buy it, and that's certainly the high moment of it. But to end up getting there, you have to go through so much bullcrap. There's so much character validation that I don't ever remember ever seeing in a Jeremy Adams comic book. At one point, Simon Baz literally gets on his knees and starts verbally filleting Jessica Cruz's ego. And then the Joe Mullins interaction with John was really strange, which ended up with a really embarrassing face that she makes. And the artist does it well, but it's so off-putting that I don't know if I can continue on with this because I don't think he wrote this. I think he outlined the story, and then Morgan Hampton, who's only ever written that I've known of Cyborg beside this, and that was awful too. I think he's the one that executed and did the dialogue, and that's why it reads like absolute kind of dog shit.
I truly believe Jeremy, he didn't have time to do this, and he just gave Morgan an outline. This is what I want to happen in the book, and Morgan put in his own quote-unquote sensibilities. And unfortunately, he made every bad decision that you can make when executing a story. And like you said, the emotional validation in this with Jessica Cruz, it really felt like she took a major backstep in progression to the New 52 when she first appeared. I'm like, she's suddenly a weaker character now because of this writer, and I really don't appreciate that. It's like there's been no growth. And like I said, he's focusing on a lot of the characters that did get a chance to shine under Jeffrey Thorne, and they fell flat. And I don't like the idea that they're bringing them back in here. We have too many human lanterns in the story as it is. Let's focus on the other alien lanterns, because those are some of the characters I want to see. We don't even see Kilowog in this, I think. We don't even see any of the other alien Green Lanterns, which is disappointing. But and at the end of this issue, I am much more terrified what we're going to get in the second issue, because I guarantee you they're going to be incredibly unfunny date jokes and insulting masculinity jokes, because it's not a good omen, and I am feeling very, very uncomfortable.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the worst thing ever, but I don't think I'll be coming back for Green Lantern Corps #2 because I honestly don't think it's a Jeremy Adams book, and that was the reason I would have read it, besides being Green Lantern Corps. But if they released a Morgan Hampton Green Lantern Corps book, I never would consider even touching it. And I think that's essentially what we're getting. The good thing is we do have some books to recommend this week, but that was a huge disappointment. Heading over to Indie Comic Books, I am definitely going to recommend Bug Wars #1, Jason Aaron writing, Mahmoud Asrar on art. A very different style of art from Mahmoud Asrar, who I'm an enormous fan of. I think he does this absolutely dynamite. And this is one of the weirdest comic books you'll ever see. There's like the Roman Empire anthill thing, but they're dressed up as Spartans and they're trying to hold off like the barbaric beetle tribe that's trying to invade their thing. And then there's a human element to it. By the end, there's like a human character like within this big struggle between the ants and the beetles and stuff. But it's so well done. It's very, very graphic. It's bloody. There's lots of bug puns. It's kind of really an interesting fantasy, weird bug story.
But yeah, I do agree with you, Wes. This book really surprised me. I thoroughly enjoyed this. Up until the human element stuff in this, when we get to the family, that's really where I feel like that's the weaker stuff, because Jason Aaron, he could write horrible, despicable characters well. That's what he does. But when it comes to writing good characters, wholesome characters, he can't do it. He's absolute dog shit at that. But the character, Dylan here, the main character, I do like him. I do sympathize with him. And the type of story he's telling here, to pitch it to someone, it's like John Carter of Mars, Game of Thrones, mixed together. And I kind of dig that, what he's doing here, because this family moves back to this house. The father is dead, and it looks like he was researching. He's an epidemiologist, I think. I forget the exact term of it is. And he was studying bugs and everything. Then the son is kind of following in his footsteps. The other brother hates him and hates the dad, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, we get to see the magical MacGuffin. He goes to the world. And yeah, I like what they're setting up here. And I will be coming back for chapter 2 because I do like a John Carter of Mars type story, but we're doing it with bugs. This is fantastic. Warring factions, and it's very well illustrated. Yeah, I got to give Jason Aaron a lot of kudos for this book, for this #1. Yeah, he really surprised me. He can still do it.
I think a lot of people have probably forgotten that Jason Aaron, as an independent comic book writer, was pretty fucking good.
Yeah, he was great at Scalped, Southern Bastards. I really love Scalped. And it feels like he may be tapping back into his old ways. So it's a good sign. Absolutely.
We're also going to recommend Geiger #11, Jeff Johns writing, Gary Frank on art. We finally get to meet Ash Arden, this unknown glowing man type character that was actually cured of their disease. Obviously, it's the same thing that Tariq has. He and Nate, the Atomic Knight, and Barney and everybody have been searching for this. They make their way to Lewistown with Junkyard Joe in tow. And we finally get some explanations on who Ash Arden is. She's a female character, looks pretty formidable and all that kind of stuff. And then when she finally tells him how she could help him get fixed, he does not like it. It's not the answer that he wanted. And Tariq becomes kind of a complete jerk off in this issue.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this issue. Ash Arden, she is a knockout of a chick in this. And yeah, she's formidable, she's powerful, she's smart, and she tries to tell Geiger, like it does work and everything. He doesn't believe her, and I love how he spurgs out toward the end of the book. She's like, yeah, didn't work out too well, did it? You need to stop that. And hopefully this is a sign that Geiger will be making a turn character-wise, where it's not good to always be the a-hole and to repress that anger, and it can get better. Maybe there is a path, and she can guide him down that path. And as well as, I like what they're setting up here with Junkyard Joe. He has a moment where he kind of spurgs out, but it looks like someone may be on his path, someone who may have a past with Junkyard Joe. And I love what they're setting up here for the upcoming issues. This has the ground. This is the foundation for a terrific story arc, and I cannot wait to see where it goes to next.
Absolutely, still enjoying Ghost Machine. Almost everything they've got right now that's kind of winning. We're also going to recommend Transformers 21, Daniel Warren Johnson writing, Jorge Corona on art. I will throw a caveat on this, and this is a personal preference of mine. Anytime you have a big team book, and then the whole team like breaks up and they go in 4 different directions, I always get annoyed with it. The only time it's ever really worked for me is Lord of the Rings, which I think it's done very well there. But normally I get very, very impatient waiting for them to all kind of come back together. And that's essentially where we are. So there are some really exciting things with what Optimus Prime is doing. I'm really enjoying that. I kind of like the Cliff Jumper, elitist stuff that's going on Cybertron, but there are just so many side adventures on this one that it's become, they're probably spinning too many plates, but it's still a good looking book. It's still fun to read, but it's very unfocused right now, which I do find a tad bit annoying.
Yeah, I agree. There's some characters I really wish there wasn't that much focus on, because a lot of those characters, I'm like, I really don't care about you guys, but okay, whatever. Like, the one story I'm interested in the most is the Ultra Magnus RC story. That's the one I want to see more development from. I want to see what's going on with Ultra Magnus, because the state that they find him in this, it's pretty damn depressing. It's pretty sad. And I hope he really does recover from the position that he's in. And yeah, I do like the Cliffjumper stuff as well. At the very end of this, what they've done, what they've more or less birthed, it's very interesting. Yeah, this is the first appearance. It's a key. We got a new Transformer shows up in this issue. And I do love what's going on with Optimus Prime as well. They're trying to figure out what caused him to have his emotional outburst. I want to see that character come back into the fold. I want to see the one character that they teased at the end of the previous issue. I want to see him come back. Can't wait for it. But yeah, it's still a good issue. It's, like you said, it's unfocused, but I really hope they do bring back the focus in the next issue. So it's a good recommend.
Absolutely. We're almost 2 years into Transformers on an ongoing series, and we really haven't had any bad issues yet. It's still a very good series, but it probably needs to find that next story arc that's really going to get you super excited for it. Final indie recommendation, Feral number 10, Toady Fleek's writing, Trish Forster on art. I know you're an enormous fan of this one. I kind of fell off. I didn't realize it was going to be an ongoing series. I don't know that like an ongoing, Aristocats fighting rabies as a analog to zombie apocalypse really is all that like something I want to go for long term. I know you're still loving it though.
Oh yeah, I'm loving this. Josh is loving this. I believe Aaron is digging it too. But yeah, I love. It's, in my opinion, it's gotten better with the new characters that they've been introduced. Like, especially in the last few issues when they've introduced like this home, this hoarder house more or less, and this woman who lives in this house, what she's done with the animals, and we could see now that the rabies, or this zombie rabies, has passed to humans now. The humans can contract it, and but unfortunately in this issue, the cats, they're stuck in the basement. The woman's body is blocking the door. And all I'm going to say is the story alive, enough said. That's what Cat's got to resort to here. But yeah, by the end of this issue, the state that we find the cats in, it's only going to get much more interesting. If it kind of really feels like they're back to square one again after this issue, which is not a good place to be in. Yeah, I'm digging the story. I dig the characters. I love the art. Trish Forster is a fantastic artist. Everyone, do check this out. This is a fantastic read.
Do you think they're going to reveal that they did a gain of function test on rabies in China, and that's how this happened?
I would laugh my ass off if they did that. I'd be like, yes, that's hilarious.
That would be very funny. Let's move over to Marvel Comics. We've got a comic book to recommend there. Cable 11, Chrome number 2. David Peppo's writing, Mike Henderson on art. Not the most beautifully illustrated comic book, but I do think the artist is perfectly suited and fine for the scale of comic book that we've got here. But it's a good Cable story. He's falling in love on the path to hell, or whatever Jerry Duggan called that crap. But we get a freaking train heist here. I love a good train heist. We get medical updates on Cable's love interest here. She's getting sicker and sicker. He even tries to stop her from going out, and she slaps the piss out of him, which I don't blame her because she's the leader of the resistance. We get a pretty badass, wild action scene as they try to destroy the factory that's creating this spark spray that's keeping everyone's techno-organic virus at bay. And what happens to Cable by the end of it was pretty wild. And I think it's just kind of a cool, weird Cable story that's throwing in a lot of techno-organic virus stuff to it. And I think it's very, very enjoyable.
Yeah, this was a very enjoyable issue. I do love the relationship between the two leads here. I will say that I like Mike Hawthorne as an artist. He's a very talented artist. But I will say this. Mike Henderson, sorry. His one weak point is that he cannot draw women that well. The ladies in this are not drawn that well. I mean, there's a panel in this where after Cable and the lead bump uglies, you see a framed photo of the female character, Sister Lucy. I'm like, whew, that's not a woman. That's not a lady.
Man.
Yeah. But yeah, I do love when he's sitting up here with the techno-organic virus, how it's infected her, and he's pretty much telling her, like, you don't have that much time to go, but they're living their life to the fullest. But yeah, chaos ensues by the end of this, and what they're setting up in the next issue. Yeah, I cannot wait. It's it doesn't look too good for Cable at the end of this issue. This is a very fun issue. David Pepose, he's doing a good job right now, and I'm hoping he can keep it up.
Yeah, definitely wouldn't mind seeing some more Cable by David Pepose after this, at least from the first 2 issues. Enjoying it so far. Over to DC, we do have one comic book to recommend, and it is written by Jeremy Adams, but it's certainly not Green Lantern Corps. Aquaman #2, Jeremy Adams writing, John Timms on art. I like the chutzpah that Jeremy Adams has placed into Arthur Curry Aquaman. He's not normally a badass, but this Aquaman that apparently is very, very upset that his wife and his child and his entire civilization has been taken through this pearl that turned into an Omega symbol and all that stuff. He is furious. Like he's threatening to kill people. He's doing stuff with blood and all this kind of stuff. And we do get a return of a long lost character that I hadn't thought about in years. I thought was really cool, but like the intensity of this Aquaman is like no other version of Aquaman I've ever seen. And this is unequivocally, without a doubt, my pick of the week. This is the best comic book you can read this week. And this feels like a Jeremy Adams comic book. That's the best part.
100%. 1, I do agree with you, Wes. This was my pick of the week. And 2, yes, this is a Jeremy Adams book. I can definitely tell he wrote this one. I loved this issue. And honestly, the last time Aquaman felt like this much of a badass was probably, honestly, during the Peter David Aquaman run. And that's a good 20 plus years ago. And I thoroughly enjoyed this. And what he's setting up here, the dark tide, the prophecy. And it's like, oh, fascinating. Looks like we're taking a little dark twist with Aquaman here. And yeah, I do love the character they brought back here. And he does have Atlantean heritage. That's terrific. And it seems like they're getting into some King Arthur mythology here too as well. Maybe. We'll see what happens. But I love the action in this. I love the art. I love the prophecies. I love the story to come. This is a terrific comic book. Aquaman is back on top. Honestly, I think, my opinion, probably the best book at DC Comics right now. I think it's 2 issues in, and I think we passed Green Lantern. This is a fantastic issue and has the makings of a fantastic series.
Absolutely, and this is what I'm expecting when I get agreed with the Jeremy Adams book. I expect to be good and to really amplify the heroic nature of the character, and that is what's happening here, and certainly happening in Green Lantern. So, really enjoyed that. So we had a fun week. I'm glad you enjoyed MegaCon. Did you meet any, Thinking Critical fans, or were there just only Drew fans there?
There were a lot of Thinking Critical fans. They would come up to Aaron and I. We were at various. We weren't even at our booth. We'd be at other artists that come up to us like, "You're Drew," or "You're Aaron." Oh my god! And Aaron would get a lot of Kneel Before Doomface stuff, and people were coming up to talk to him, which was great. And we had creators or fans of the show come up to us. Like we were out in the street, come up to us and like shake our hands, say, "Hey, how's it going, guys?" It's like, "Oh, interesting. Was not expecting this." And we met Jim Zub several times, and Jim Zub says hi. By the way, and I'm hoping we're back here next year as well. But I got plenty of shows this year. I'll be all over the country this year coming up. So,
but the most important one is Dallas Fan Expo.
Yes, absolutely. I'll be. I think Josh has got our place. We got the Casa de Bachelor, Casa de Thinking Critical house we're going to be staying at. And we're working on a booth right now. We have big plans and schemes for Dallas Fan Expo.
I'll be there. It sounds like Aaron will be there. You'll be there. Josh will be there. Doc will be there. Dylan says he's going to be there. Max will be there. 32 Flavors with Nick Weiser is going to be there. Jim's thinking about being there, and I probably missed a few.
Maybe Perch? We're going to get a Perch sighting?
Perch will certainly be there. Yes, that's his city.
Very nice.
If you enjoy this, but you would like a bigger version of it, where we not just talk about the good stuff, we talk about the bad stuff and everything in between, the Hot or Not podcast is probably the podcast for you. Available exclusive on Think Critical Patreon. You support the channel. You help us keep the lights on. Protect the mission of Think Critical YouTube. There's a link in the video description. And you get an awesome podcast covering all the brand new comic books every single week with our good friend Jim. Hope to see you there very soon.